Good morning and good afternoon. We would like to start today's virtual listening circle with co-Salish elders Florence James and Ray Tony Charlie. Please be advised that this Zoom session will be recorded. We will begin our event with a land acknowledgement and some opening words from Elder Florence James. Florence, could I ask you to take the floor, please?
Okay.
I natal CMC Tanakoya could stuck up Namat. I tape Akosi Huyanematal. I Tanakoya Stul Tassataskoya. Tihum, it's to arm at the house square. It's going Namat at the Muckstem. Stastana squelst. When it's all. Tihum Titliema Tanakoya. I the Tamuch Amastal Atanakoya Nils has the state wheels. Translating, I'm Florence James. I'm Salish, elder for my community of Penelakut. I'm here to join you and greet the day and say the sacred words to the land that I live on. Be thankful for the sacredness of it. It takes care of me, and we're just wishing and craving for a new day, as things have become so difficult with our days that we're having. And I just need to acknowledge all the visitors here gathered as we gather together for an important time to be together, and just hope that we can be of help and believing in our beautiful people of this country. And we cannot go to those areas that makes it difficult, but we will speak appropriately and hoping to understand one another. That's why we use our appropriate language for today. I thank you all for listening.
Hello, James. Thank you so much for the wonderful opening and moving words. What an amazing way to set the agenda for our discussion today. My name is Oliver Schmidtke, and I'm the director of the Center for Global Studies here at the University of Victoria. And I also would like to welcome you to our virtual listening circle. Let me start off by acknowledging where we meet, although we do it virtually today. We acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen peoples on whose traditional territory the university stands, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Bassanich peoples, whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. The discovery of buried remains of 215 children at the residential school in Kamloops and the unmarked graves at the residential school site in Saskatchewan have dramatically underlined the need to confront the legacies of colonialism and the treatment of Indigenous peoples in Canada. The TRC recommendations have pointed out that universities have their important role to play in confronting the past and in promoting reconciliation. We see in a way today's event very much as part of an ongoing commitment to better understand the history of colonialization of Canada and the impact it has on contemporary Canadian society. And here at the Center for Global Studies, we feel extremely fortunate and grateful to co-Salish elders Florence James and Ray Tony Charlie, joined today by Rocky James, that they have agreed to speak to us. So thank you very much for joining us today to tackle an issue that clearly is difficult, but so important to bring to the attention of a large audience. Our two speakers will be introduced today by Kelly Bannister, who will also lead us as a moderator through our discussion with the virtual listening circle. Kelly Bannister is the co-director of the POLIS Project on Ecological Governance at the Center for Global Studies here at UVic, and her academic background is in ethnobiology and applied research ethics, and her work focuses on supporting respectful knowledge sharing across diverse knowledge systems and wisdom traditions. Kelly, with this, over to you.
Thank you so much, Oliver, for the kind introduction, and thank you, Elder Florence, for your opening to start us off on a good way. It's always a great joy to stand with you, and also Elder Ray. I'm going to introduce the two of you more fully in a moment, but it's a great joy that I stand here. And I also, as with Florence and Elder Ray, I'm calling from Salish territory. I'm actually on a small island called Thetis Island in the part of the Salish Sea. And so I stand on Penelakut territory with our elders here. And I thought I would give you just a tiny little background to why we've gathered here, complementing what Oliver has shared. And as you said, we're part of the Center for Global Studies at UVic. And over the last few years, actually, we've been asking the question, what can we do in response and to be responsible to the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action? What can we do as a university research center? What's our role? And so we've been asking that question for some time. And over those years, both Florence and Ray have been our cherished elders and mentors, coming and speaking with us and coming to events or coming to gatherings and sharing with us. So it's very, very precious to me that we can gather again in this way. And it's quite a large circle now. I see there's 183 participants. So I don't know where you're calling from, but thank you so much for calling in from all of your lands and your territories. And we respect and acknowledge all the places and all the peoples of those places that you're calling in from. And so glad you could join us. But when the recent events of the findings of the unmarked burial sites, Kamloops and then Saskatchewan and onward across our country are starting to come to be known through the media. Like a lot of people, we asked, with great concern, what can we do? What can we do? And as I was sharing with the speakers earlier, a great friend of mine, Verna Miller, an Ecological woman, she said many times to us, what you need to do is listen. She said, you need to listen and listen and listen again. And when you're finished listening, listen some more. And so those words were just ringing through my mind. And I thought, well, let's listen. And who should we listen to? And in my heart, it said, Ray and Florence. Those are the people who I think might be willing to share with us and to help us listen and learn where to from here in this quest for reconciliation, which involves not just justice, but healing. And so with great pleasure, I'd like to introduce our cherished and beloved elders and also Florence's son, Rocky. So I'm going to give a more formal introduction. Florence, who opened for us, is, I would say, she's a lifelong learner and educator. She describes herself in this way. And she's from Penelakut Island, which just is across the water from me. And Florence is a fluent speaker of her Salish dialect, Halkomelem dialect. And she's a very traditional person, trained in many dimensions of her traditions and healing and language and customs and protocol. She's always guiding us in this good way to come together. She always comes with teachings to help us be together across our differences and bring so much beauty and joy to our gatherings. Her real passion and love is the young ones, the babies of this world. And she always says that that's really who she does her work for, is for the young ones and the future generations. And so it's, and Florence is also so well versed in the environment and interconnections, and she brings that ecological sense and interconnection to everything that she speaks about and teaches about. So with great gratitude, we thank Florence for opening and welcome her to the circle. Florence is with her son Rocky, who for technical reasons fortuitously gets to join us, and I'm so happy because Rocky is also so dear, and also in his own right, I believe he's just about finished his PhD at UBC. Is that right, Rocky? Did you finish? Not quite yet. Okay, just about, maybe a little bit more than just about, and he's doing some wonderful work, and he's in policy and working across differences across cultures. And I was looking at his work, helping people to really understand how to be together, how across our differences, how to be an ally, how to be effective in affecting social change. And he's also involved in healing work that I hope he'll talk about, supporting people through these difficult, sensitive times. So welcome, Rocky. And also, of course, like to introduce our beloved Elder Raymond Tony Charlie. And Ray is also a member of Penelakut Tribe. He is an educator, a speaker, an author, even a film star, I guess I can say, having been involved in 2 films. He is one of the most, like Florence, is one of the most generous people I know. And Ray is a person who experienced not just 1, but 2 residential schools. And he has taken many years to be able to share his stories. And in the last few years, he's done this very, very courageous work in starting to write his story. And in fact, I don't know if you're ever finished, but he's completed a book manuscript about his story, not just his residential school experiences, but really, I think, some of his life lessons. And it's a very, Ray shared with me an earlier version and then a completed version of the book. I received with great honor to take a look at his words and read his words. And, we'll get to the book as part of this talk, but as I was reading, I was really struck by your way of expressing yourself, Ray. Felt like the ocean, felt like the Salish Sea itself, like the waves would come in and there'd be a wave of expression and then a pause and another wave. And I found your writing so compelling that there was these sharing and these pauses, just like the ocean. And the entire book is held up in with a goal of healing and with so much love and compassion. And that is, I think, how I would describe Ray. He's just radiates that love and compassion. So with that, I probably didn't say half the things I meant to say, but I'm just very thrilled to be standing with you and supporting this listening circle. And so with that, thank you for joining us. And I would like to invite everybody who's participating. I would just like to share that listening is a verb and it's an active process. So please put away your distractions and be as fully present as you can and make yourself comfortable and listen with your whole being as our cherished elders spend a little time with us sharing what it is that they would like to share. And I think with that, I'll pass over to you, Ray. And invite you to share some opening words and into your story, if you would like.
Okay, certainly. It's been very interesting to be connecting here with my dear friend Kelly, who has been a great support to me over the years, and she's been such a close friend and a very supporting one. So she's very special to me, and I am very grateful to you, Kelly, and to all your team that is putting on this event. It's very important right now because I really feel Canada, and I think the world is really, really opened up right now with the discovery of all the unmarked graves that have occurred and that are still occurring today across Canada at all the residential schools. There is a lot of pain, there is a lot of sorrow, there is a lot of grieving. right now, and as the bodies are being discovered and stuff. So I really feel that it's important that we continue to support, but also learn what's happened. This has been an awakening for Canada. A lot of our survivors and a lot of our people have talked about this for a long time, but it is becoming a public now because they discovered the bodies, and a lot of our people will have been talking about this for a long time, but we've had no audience, we've had no support, and we've had no understanding. So I really feel that many of the people here today, I really feel that it's just important to understand that it's a very difficult time amongst our people across Canada, and it's very challenging. So I will just share a little bit about my life as a survivor. I'm not unique. I'm not. I always say I'm only one of 150,000 children. We all have our stories. We all have our challenges, and I really feel today that we must heal. It's important that we share our stories so people will begin to understand what happened. Because I think what's happened today is when I look out, a lot of people say, "Oh, there's those drunk Indians. There they are. Look at them. They're just bums and all that stuff." And people don't understand there's a reason why I always say that they're in the streets and they're living a difficult time right now because they're suffering. They're suffering from residential school. If it's not them, it's their families, or it's their siblings, or it's their grandparents. And so they're in a difficult place right now. And it's always my hope that they will find some healing and some support. So I really feel it's important that we support these people who are having a difficult time. So I will just share a little bit about my life as a survivor. In 1963, 64, I moved back to Canada because my late mother died, and we moved in with our late Auntie Mary and late Uncle Simon. They were going to be our new guardians, our new support, which is the way of our people. They always help out family, and so that's what my late aunt and uncle did. So they brought us to Cooper Island. I was in the American side, state of Washington, and living there. But as we got off the ferry, I was following them. We were going to the village. They call it the Penelakut village on the other side. And actually, that was the site of Penelakut was at the main village. There was a half-buried log in the sand, and it was like a mark amongst our people. They called it Penelakut, but that was soon to become the name of our island, Penelakut. So it was once called Cooper Island, which was named after Captain Cooper, and his ship was MV Thetis Island. Thetis, that was his vessel, sailing vessel. So he named the two islands, but actually there was only one island before. We had our whole village on the two, what they call islands, until our people dug a path through the islands there for their canoes. So anyway, I walked by this red brick building. It was a huge building. It seemed out of place, not something you see in a remote area. And it was really overbearing for me because, it looked nice. The grounds were all manicured. The lawn was all mowed. And I thought, wow, geez, this looks like a nice place. So in 63, 64, I was a day student, and finally, after meeting a lot of the kids there, I started to hear a lot of the stories and a lot of the things that have occurred in this building. And it was really unbelievable what they shared with me. And that's one thing about our people. They will just keep talking about it. And there's no audience. There's no one to else to talk to. So they share amongst each other very quietly. So I began to hear some of the stories, and anyway, as it turned out, I would become part of the residential school system starting in latter part of 1966. I was joining the school band, and so they had to do a lot of practices and a lot of performances. So I had to move into the residential school just after Christmas in 1966, and we were going to Expo 67 in Montreal. So it was a big event. So anyway, the band was a little over 30 people in total, and we had about 4 or 5, they called them supervisors or whatever. They would either support everyone. So we ended up getting our jet to Montreal, and we landed, but we were very fortunate. We got invited to City Hall and met Mayor Jean Drapeau right away, and signed the big book, the Golden Book they called it. It was for all the dignitaries who came to Montreal. So we signed the big book and stuff, and we had a tour of Montreal on a bus. But we had about 3 or 4 performances right on the grounds of Montreal as a band. So that was quite something. So anyway, we were there for the whole week, and it was kind of a big thing for us, because a lot of our people, a lot of our children, myself included, we've never been on a jet before, and we've never had the opportunity to stay at accommodations away from our home or travel. So it was a big deal. We were all pretty excited. So and we're all very young too, so very naive, very innocent and stuff. So anyway, as it turned out, we did our almost a whole week in Montreal, and I was with my brother, and everyone was getting ready to leave, so packing their bags. But we had a big banquet there with the International Clubs of Montreal. And they were actually very helpful to us, because they paid for all our accommodation for the whole week, all the International Clubs of Montreal. So halfway through this big banquet dinner they put up for us, I was asked to give a little speech to all the club members. So I wrote it down on a napkin, and I got up and I thanked them for their generosity and their help. So we were all very, very thankful to them, and we were very happy. So anyway, the speech went well to all the club members. They all stood up. There was about 300 of them that were at the banquet, and I decided that I wanted to at least remember this. So the next morning, we're all getting on the bus, getting ready to go to airport, and my supervisor was Brian Dufour, and he comes over to me, my brother and myself. He says, you can leave your bags here because you're coming with me. And we had no idea. He said, you're coming with me. You're going to stay with me for a while. So all the kids were getting ready on the bus, and they noticed that we weren't getting on. So a lot of them came over. They were crying and hugging us and stuff and saying goodbye. So it would be the last time a lot of us would see each other, because a lot of them were getting older, and they would be moved to another residential school or whatever. So it was very very touching and moving time. So anyway, my brother and myself went to with Brian to Greenfield Park in Montreal, a suburb there, and we stayed with Brian and his parents. But I don't know, this was a very difficult part because that was the first night I was given this small little bedroom downstairs, and there was a living room that had a hide-a-bed in it. And I was given the room by myself for the night. So the next night I was moved in with Brian on the hide-a-bed, and it was kind of tough because that was the first time I had ever had sex abuse, So Brian wasn't, his intentions were other, than being anything else. But he, so I had the sexual abuse with him, and the next day my brother says, "We get funny with you," and we weren't together. We weren't together alone very much, but he finally said, "Did he do funny things to you?" And I just nodded my head. So it was very shocking to have that type of encounter with Brian, because I thought he was always very friendly and very helpful and stuff. So, but I began to change my opinion of him, and I don't know. I really for that whole month he wasn't around much, but it was just me and my brother at that place. So. But anyway, as it turned out, just probably early part of 2000, I was called by the RCMP in Ottawa, and they wanted to bring me to Ottawa to testify about sex abuse about Brian Duford, because apparently after he quit being a brother, part of the church, he started to take care of children there back in Toronto or Ottawa somewhere, and he started to sexually abuse a lot of the children there. So he was eventually put in jail, and he wasn't in jail very long, but he died. I'm not sure if he was murdered or what. The police didn't tell me at all, but they called me, must have been a couple of weeks later, and they said, "Oh, we won't need to bring you here because Brian has died." That's all they told me, so I didn't question that. But anyway, and then I started school, grade 8 in 1967 at the residential schools. I was there for the full year. And that was my second encounter with sex abuse. My supervisor was Glenn Dowdy, and he moved me way down the end, away from the big dormitory, and he put me in a small room by myself, and there was only a bunk bed in there, and I was sleeping peacefully one night, and he came into my room. It was very dark, and he began to sexually abuse me, and that lasted probably mid-September to mid-December. So it was a length of time that I had encounters with him, and some nights I'd get into my bed and I couldn't sleep because it was a very confusing time for a very young teenager to have these encounters with someone who was supposedly a man of God. I always had this respect, because they drummed, "We got to respect God. We got to respect all his disciples," they called them, the brothers and the priests and the nuns and stuff. So, but anyway, it was very difficult because I couldn't sleep some nights. I'd finally fall asleep. Then he'd come in and do his thing with me. And I was just one messed up young teenager. I had no clue. Who could I talk to? Who could I tell? What can I do about this? So I couldn't do nothing. I was just very young and innocent, and I just didn't know what to do. So one night I was laying in my bed, and I looked above me at the bed above me, the bunk bed, and I decided maybe I'll move up there. So that's what I did. I moved to the top of the bunk bed, and all the abuse stopped. He had no more access to me and stuff. So I'm not sure at that time if he's moved into abusing one of the other young fellas. He may have been, because he did sexually abuse a lot of the young men there, young boys at Keeper Island Residential School. We eventually went to court with him in early 2000. He was criminally charged and had to do only 3 years of prison for sexual abuse, and there was 13 of us that went in and testified against him. So it was not a very big sentence for a man who messed up their lives, because I just turned 70 just the end of May, and I lived with this horrible memories and thoughts of sex abuse for 55 years plus. So it was a very difficult time for me most times. And I'll just share one episode. Every night I used to go to my bed, me in my wife's bedroom, and I'd grab this little night light, and I'd go to the side of the night table, and I'd open drawer, pull out a night light, and I'd plug it in, and my wife would say, she said, "Why do you need that night light?" I said, "Well, I don't want to trip in the dark." And then she says, "Well, why do you need it?" I said, "Well, I don't want to stub my toe on the bed." And then she says, "Why do you need it?" And I said, "I don't want to fall." And I answered about 10 times. I answered her. And finally I said, she says again, "Well, why do you need it?" And I told her I was sexually abused in the dark. But that was a big turning point in my life, because I had never told anyone up to that point, and that was in 1987, one night. So that was a big step, is finally disclosing to someone. And my wife was there, and she actually supported me, because I cried like a baby for about 3 hours in bed. She was holding me and supported me, because it all came out when you hide things away, which I think a lot of our survivors tend to do. They try to forget a lot of the experiences, or they won't talk about it. And so I finally let it out. So it was a very big time for me to tell somebody. So I was very messed up at that time. So I decided, I gotta start healing myself. And so it's been a long journey since then, my first disclosure. So I'll just share one more episode about residential school. And this was, I was moved into a second residential school in St. Mary's, Mission City. A lot of our boys, there's about 50, 60 of us. We had our own dorm, we had our own rec room and stuff. So one night we're getting ready for bed, and before study, we finished supper, so we watched this hockey game, Montreal against Chicago. So crazy me, I walk to the front of the room, I sit on the front chair below the TV. They were pretty small in those days. Put my feet up, cheering on Montreal. So it was very good game, a very exciting game. So I decided, well, I'm going to just watch this game. And all the guys that are sitting behind me, the room was very dark, and there was only the light from the TV that lit up all the room in the back behind me. So finally, I just heard this voice, "What are you doing here?" Real stern voice. I turned and I just turned my head, and I got punched really hard. Knocked me down to the floor off my chair. I was on my hands and knees, and I got slammed real hard across, backhanded, and my head was dizzy, and my head turned like that. And as my head turned, I noticed I was the only one in the room. All the guys went to study, and the one told me it was study time. So I was a bit late for study, so my supervisor was Brother Francis, and he says, "We get to my office." So he kind of pushed me like I'd get to my office. So I walked to his office, and I got there, and he said, "You're getting 10 straps on each arm." So I put out my arms, and he started strapping me, and he was using like a whip. So like after three or four straps, my arms and my hands were getting really hot. And after he finished, my hands were almost so numb with pain, and they were really hot. And like was tears coming down my eyes. It was just a painful thing to go through. And he said, "Get to study." So I walked over to my cubicle, tried to grab my books, and my fingers and my hands couldn't move. They were frozen numb. And they were frozen numb for 6 hours. I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't move my arms or nothing. They were just frozen. But that's how hard he whipped me with that little strap. So. But anyway, I'm sharing here because I really want everyone to understand there is still a lot of pain, there is still a lot of trauma, and there is still a lot of difficulties amongst our people today. A lot of them can't talk, a lot of them are still having a hard time. So I decided I will share my story so people will begin to understand our people are still in a difficult place. So anyway, I hope you will have a bit of an idea just from my experiences that there is still so much challenges out there for a lot of our survivors. So thank you for listening. I could talk a lot longer, I know, but I know this is a panel and we have so much to do here. So I thank you for listening to my story, and I'll turn this back over to our moderators. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, we raise your hands to you. Some very, very courageous sharing of your story, of your experiences, the cruelty, the unfathomable cruelty for many of us. And so you stand here before us with great courage and so much compassion, sharing your story and those difficult words that are that you lived and are difficult.
Thank you, Kelly. And the book is almost complete now, so hopefully it'll be published by September. And I thank you for all your support on that. It's been very gratifying for me to have your support there. So thank you very much, Kelly.
Ray, I asked you permission before we started if I could read a few words from your book manuscript. And the book, this is a picture of maybe I'll take the, sorry for the noise, take the sheet off. And this is a picture of the Cooper Island Residential School, which is on now called Penelakut Island. And Ray's manuscript, In the Shadow of the Red Brick Building. I had my fingers in the spot where I was going to read, and actually then I closed the book when I got lost on Zoom. So I'm not sure if I can find the spot I was going to read from, but maybe if it's okay, I'll just paraphrase. You write about these, these despicable acts of cruelty and disregard for dignity. But you also write about your counseling and your counselor, I think, named Frank, who started encouraging you to write these stories or write about yourself and embark on your healing journey. And you write with great gratitude about your counselor, Frank, and how that was kind of, I think, the start of writing your story. And as you describe your healing journey, incredibly, absolutely incredibly, you speak not just about the healing of yourself, but as part of that, the forgiveness of yourself and of the abusers, and how this, seems incomprehensible, but somehow you even came to that place, such a profound and deep and beautiful place of healing. And I think that's, why your message is so strong and so powerful, because it comes from that place of a person doing that healing work and that healing journey. And so I think what I'll do is I'll just turn to your poem and share your poem that you included, if that's okay. And then
Yes.
Thank you, Ray. And then we'll turn it over to Florence and Rocky and ask them if they would like to make a contribution. So here's a short poem that Ray has included in his manuscript. It's okay to open your eyes. Stand up and look around. Your friends are gone, and much of your family, with flashing memories in your mind. With beautiful thoughts of bygone days, we shared together laughter, tears, good times and bad. They are gone into the spirit world, but remembered and deeply loved, remain treasured in our hearts. They are no longer in pain, not suffering today. They want you to be happy. Don't be sad. Residential schools are gone. They no longer exist, but in your heart. Breathe in and let it go. Heal your body and your mind. Find yourself and move on as a proud First Nations person. Learn your history, your language, connections to the land and water, the sacred medicines. Your family need you, and your people too. Grandchildren look up to you, needing your love and support. Love yourself, as you are special. Thank you for letting us share your words and in your story, your written story, Ray. Those beautiful words, and also the words that you shared today live. And I wish we were together. I wish all of us could be together, and I know this is a difficult topic and difficult to listen to, but that much more difficult to speak. So thank you, and I wish I could be closer and give you that hug. I send it to you and those loving, caring thoughts to be together. And thank you, Ray. So I will, I'll invite Florence and Rocky. Would you be willing to join the conversation and offer something up? Florence, I think, may have some words, but she also might have a little movement for us to engage in.
Yes, I'd like to address my late husband. That's his family. We know him as Tony, but he uses his proper name of Ray. And I just want to say that you have to reflect back to the childhood of these young people at that time. They were innocent. They never introduced sexual activity till they were more mature and explained it. That's how it was said to me at 8 years old. So I want to take away the thought that just to help with the memory that these innocent children didn't do that. They should not feel guilty or ashamed. And to tell the story is to release the pain. I felt it when my daughter died. I just felt the more I said it, the better I felt. There was a healing with it. And I just had to muster up strength to do it. And I know I'm not a residential school student. When I was young, my mom fought the Indian agent. But just to know I have family members that experienced that too. My husband was abused and he got stuck there. He saw all his sisters going to school and were you all going? He said, we're going to school. And at that time, my great-grandpa, he donated his land here on the island so they could build the school, in the hopes that the children would have education. You have to remember that too. That was what he dreamed for the kids. Well, that's really good. He said it in a language. All they ever wanted was education for the children. And what was there never was really there. A lot of my family came out, they couldn't sign their name, yet they called it school. School, they said. But it wasn't. Right from my great-grandma's time, she lost 3 children there, and they never did tell her that they died. And my mom got stuck there for 7 years. And you speak about ways to raise a child. Well, we weren't raised as proper as you think. We're all working hard at it to be good mommies. But we can be aggressive because that's what we learned. We didn't do good to our children. We did wrong. And now we have to try and undo it by educating ourselves and others. So the old traditional ways is how would I turn to. And what all is being revealed today, I pray that nothing shall be hid. I pray that all the time. And so that these families of ours, our members, can heal and be able to feel safe like you're creating today, a safe space. And all those ones that we can't see that are listening. And it's the best tool in the world is the listening part. And you can help us with the pain so we can avoid it anymore. More stories, they're secrets to people. And that's where the pain is, it's hidden. Some cannot handle to reveal because I asked my good friend I work with for what could I do to help you, I said. And she said, Florence, don't go there. I can't open up because that's how I can survive. Every day, it's an everyday struggle, she said to me. And I said, if you want to tell me the story, so they're unlike how Ray is. He's been able to manage to be able to release some of his pain by just you listening to him for 20 minutes. And he's telling you about the way that the First Nation are treated. When they went into the school, they thought, oh, we want education. We want this place to teach them how to be holy. They already knew that. That was the trick. The people believed in a creator. They believed in praying because it's in my language. I say it all the time. And my great-grandma, she said, We believed in that. We wanted that for our children. That was the catch. It's like a catch. They believed in a creator because he could speak to them through their hearts and let them know, this is what I want you to learn. Maybe today, spiritual. So we had seers in the community that could speak directly to the creator. They're called Siawa. It's not that we didn't know spirituality, but in that place they hoped to learn it because they thought it was a very sacred thing. So that's what caught everyone when they went in. Oh, we must obey, we must learn. But it was the total opposite of the spirituality of First Nation people. So to talk about what the pain is our reality today. And my husband was the same. He was sexually abused there at the age of 7. So what do children know today? Do you ask your child, what do you know about it? Could you actually do a sexual activity? You wait till us were taught at 8 years old, because we're all girls, by my dad. So he could give us the male perspective. That's 8 years old. He didn't tell us about the activity. He only told us, this is what you do when you get married. This is how you behave. Totally opposite of what you're hearing. So we're taught the traditional ways when we're small, 5 to 8 years old. All the traditional knowledge was now being passed to us, opposite of what my mom learned. So aggressive behavior is what we do. We think that's how we should do things. It's wrong. And it offends the person that you're open to aggress. So our environment needs the healings. We need the society to understand what people have gone through, as Ray shared with you, to avoid it, so that he could speak and heal. And we have been taught to respect the smallest things, bugs and fish, all those things we have prayers for, to be grateful. Total opposite of what you're hearing. If you know of help, my recommendation is to bring it into the technology like today. Money can go to society. I don't know of a safe place to put the money. There must be someone that's going to create a space for us to get the technology to x-ray the grounds as they're doing. You know, to me, it's such a painful thing to hear 215 babies being buried without a casket. That was my pain to hear, because I'm used to traditional ways. This is what I'm going to do as soon as the funeral comes around. That's one. 215 caskets. Could you imagine? That was my pain. I didn't do it right, I felt. I didn't bury these children properly, is what went to my mind. And each one has to be prepared properly. And we have a 4-day event for the wake, which none of them ever received. So those are my terrors when I hear the story, because traditionally it never got done. And yet there's more to be found. That's just 1 or 2 places you're hearing. The unheard of stories you're hearing today. So those are my thoughts. That we look to you. We cannot do this alone. We need a million Kellys into the POLIS to help us, because your mainstream society has the power. We can't change the Indian Act that put us there, but you need to help us in that way. That's my thoughts. We're intergenerational. I'm speaking as intergenerational. My dad was what kept us afloat because he had the traditional knowledge to pass by way of oral history. So in my classes, that's what I teach, traditional knowledge, because that's what's helped strengthen me. Caring for others versus trying to climb above them. It's then your joy to fit in the world. My service to you is what I can do to be of help. A leader, I've been taught, gets his greatness from his people, the environment, versus the other attacks you. And so that's how I see the residential school. Instead of the knowledge my great-great-grandpa wanted for the children, he got the total opposite. They annihilated our children. Education is a big push from my mom. Be educated, that's how you're going to fit in. You're going to survive if you can educate yourself. So that was still from my family. That's 5-6 generations away. And a lot of us have to jump many hoops to get educated. We have to compete with other First Nation. Yet they say, you get it free. We didn't get it free. Here, all the pain and no education, nothing is free. People have died for this pain that's coming out of education, supposed to be called school. Join us in how to prepare for our days ahead. Mainstream society such as POLIS, I know we can look to you, we feel safe, and we feel your strength that supports us in every way. Just as Ray is, I stay close to Kelly, and she'll work with me. We've done water conference, we're caring for the land. She brings me out to speak to people. This was the traditional territory. She brought me to the island and the west side here. Explained to the people, this is where the First Nation hunted ducks. I'll explain it to you. So those are the things that I speak about and I talk about. We bring Raymond's video recording of Returning to the Circle. That's our child and youth program class. But we have to sit there and support them as they watch the video. They don't know anything about it. But when they hear and learn, it just floors everyone. We have to stay there, support and pray and speak to them and help them to feel okay about things. Yet here we are local, and we haven't been able to really gather because of the pandemic. And look at this heat wave that came across. We care for the land. If you go down the beach today, the tide goes way out. We love every part of it. And yet the heat is cooking the clams, the cockles, the oysters, the sea cucumber, what we live on, is being cooked on the very top of the sandbars. Hornby Island has a report. Saltaire has a report. Son can smell it from where he lives just above the beach. All those are important to us. And what do they say about it? Greenhouse gases. What do we do about it? We carpool. We only shop one day of the week. We're not out and about every day. So help the earth to keep us alive. That's my belief. But those, I have family here, they've just had one small little compensation, and she was very, very ill from it. So the healing journey needs more focus. A good counselor, I recommend. Above all else, I know they'll have small compensation, but you know, my family member is educated. She doesn't know what to do with the pain. And we have to talk her through the day. So nothing's been revealed in some areas. So they're not as strong as Raymond. And so my thoughts are roots of the family. The language I still teach so I can return it back to the people. I'm not taught to look down on others that can't speak because they pained them. They harmed my husband and used the needle on his tongue, so if he was caught speaking, he couldn't speak. And then the only way he could feel good was to tell me to speak the language to him, say things to him. He could understand me, but he couldn't respond. He wasn't speaking to me. The odd time he tried. And so those are the things that we need to work on. The language is your empowerment. That's how I feel. And bring life to your spiritual side. It's called the Salish. And we do lots of brushings with cedar and water bathing. And so you could take some of the harm off. If we spoke today, the pain like the way Raymond is, we have to burn our clothing in traditional ways. You have to burn all what you're wearing because all the not good on your body comes, you sweat it out. And your clothing has to be burnt. It's not good for you to wash it and wear it again. So those are what I want to share with you today. And I hope that you could hear us. And I just want to thank you for taking the time out to hear us and hear the traditional side that I grasped onto to be able to correct the way I am and the way I think. And so I'll let Son speak. I'd say,
Squale, Sia Mastimoch, good day, respected ones. Ain'tha Theuston. My traditional name is Theuston. My English name is Rocky James. I'm from the Penelakut Tribes here. And I just want to take an opportunity to say how grateful I am for the way that our people pray. We really acknowledge the day. And I'd just like to acknowledge that it's June 30th, 2021, to help us stay grounded in the day that we're in. It's really powerful. Our language can provide medicine. I was speaking with, I had a session with my therapist yesterday, and one of the things that she walks me through is asking me what day it is, what my birthday is, so that I can help my inner child remember where I am and that it's safe. And I would just like to acknowledge my Uncle Tony for sharing your story. I have another uncle, Joe Norris, who taught me quite a while ago. He said, one day people are going to be sitting around and they're going to say, we better ask an elder. And they're going to look at you and it's going to be you. What are you going to say? And when it comes to the legacy of the Indian residential school system, What I'm going to say is that I know that my uncle Tony Charlie went to residential school. And it's painful. It's a horrible thing to hear. But I want to be very clear with people that this story is not just about sexual abuse, physical abuse, or mental abuse. This is the Canadian Indigenous genocide, and we can no longer deny that now. These are acts of genocide and human rights violations, and these were children. We can't forget that. Because when we hear people talk, we're hearing the adult talk for the child. But there is a child in there that needs healing and caring and to be heard. The most violent thing about the Indian residential school legacy was that everything was taught through a pedagogy of fear. It was all fear-based learning. And so when a child was in the school, they feared for their lives. They feared that if they didn't listen, that they would die, or that the people around them would die. And then they took that out into their family home, to their children, into their community, and into our administrations. So when I hear my uncle talk, I do hear forgiveness. I do hear healing, because some Indian residential school survivors can't share like that. And something I heard on my healing journey about forgiveness is that it's not about seeing the other person as a better person. It's about trying to let go of the hatred that we carry around with us about the other person. And that so much of the healing depends on trying to let go of that hatred. Because when we hold on to it, it lives in our body. It lives in our nerves, it lives in our mind, and then it moves into our heart, where it gives us things like cancer. For the past little while, so many people from Penelakut have been experiencing some form of intestinal cancer. And what I've learned on my healing journey is that cancer is there because it's a hard problem to digest. And so we need to be able to heal that. And I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to listen to my uncle. And I used to work as a resolution health support worker, providing emotional and cultural support to Indian residential school survivors during the Canada Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And one of the strongest things that we can do for people, that we can actively do, is to live as a witness, and to be here and to listen to these stories and to make sure that people don't forget. So I've been working, I reached out to the Tzouthan Leon Society to ask them to come to Penelakut to provide some support to survivors through some healing sessions. Leading up to our Salquain, our elders, have asked us to help coordinate a march to raise awareness of the Cooper Island Industrial School. So that will be happening on August 2nd. It will start from Penelakut Island, from the site of the Indian Residential School. It will march onto the ferry and into Chemainus and up to Waterwheel Park. And so they're going to help us be there and listen to us and support us, and provide some emotional and cultural support for every 2 weeks, starting on July 14th until 2 weeks after the march. So the last healing session will be provided on August 14th. And so I just want to share that with people. If you're questioning, what can I do? This is what you can do. You can listen, you can be there, and you can witness these stories. Heichka.
Heichka Sian. I raise my hands to all of you, Rocky, Florence, and Ray, for your words, for your teachings, for your sharing in such a deep, generous, kind, gentle, compassionate way on such a difficult part of our history that we need to know. And thank you for your encouragement of what we can do, listening and showing up and supporting and being patient with people, knowing there's so much more to the story than is able to be shared in English words, and so much more to the healing journey. So I thank you all for your words and all the healing that you're doing, each of you in yourselves and in supporting your communities. And I know all of you are doing that work in small and large and profound ways. And so we're coming around to closer to the end of our time together. And I want to just return to the book manuscript that Ray is putting together. It's there's a questions in the chat. I think, can we get access to the poem, or can we get access to the book? And so this special manuscript is being put together, and there's a commitment from Askew Creek Publishing in Chemainus, which is run by Warren Golding, and Warren's made a commitment to Ray to publish this book, and there's some work that needs to happen from the writing piece to the publishing piece. There's a lot of work and there's a lot of costs involved in that, all the editing, copy editing, and then of course when it finally gets to printing. And so Warren has agreed to take on that work, and there has been for some time, a few months ago, Ray started a GoFundMe campaign. And we were just on Facebook this morning checking in. He set a goal, a very minimal goal, like at a minimum, he would need $15,000 to initiate, to be able to know that this book could come into publication. And this morning early in the morning, I checked, $15,150 were on his GoFundMe campaign.
Yay.
Yes. And so he reached the minimum. And, I think let's drive it up there, and let's not go for minimum, but the sky's the limit on this, because the more that could be raised, the better support this can be, and the more copies that can become available, the lower the price, I guess. There's all these benefits if there's a little bit more in there, and also for the unexpected. And, Ray does this completely voluntarily. There's been, years of work that he's put into sharing his story. You said 5 years at least of this writing back and forth. Yeah. And so I don't know, I have to ask our tech people, is there a way to put the GoFundMe link into the chat? Or do we have a way to follow up with people and let them know in case they're interested? I looked at 180 people. What if everybody gave $5? Boy, that would add up fast. That great stuff says she's going to put it in the chat. GoFundMe campaign, great. Thanks, Laura. It's in the chat. So that's another thing. And I believe Oliver, our director of our Center for Global Studies, who's co-hosting this, I don't know if you have a few brief words to share before we wrap up. And I think the center is going to make a contribution, I understand, to the book. I'll just pass it to you for a few minutes if you would like to add a few words, Oliver.
Thank you very much, Florence, Ray, and Rocky. It's so powerful to hear your voice and the stories. Thank you for the courage to bring this up, and I think it's so important, for the public to realize. Sometimes we have these numbers like 215 children buried without proper recognition or identification. They all have stories, and they would have stories to tell. But I think this is, the public needs to know and to realize, what happened at the residential schools and to Indigenous peoples more broadly. And so I think in this respect, speaking up, finding the courage and the stamina to do this kind of work is so important. So, Tony, we very much look forward to your book. It will be part of telling the story. And I think Rocky, you talked about the mainstream Canadian society. It will be harder to neglect this suffering. And then hopefully it will trigger a change. We might see some turning point at the moment, that might be a bit optimistic, but I just think we need to, you need to keep pushing. And, these kinds of conversations and your courage, I think, is an important part of coming to terms with this legacy of colonial violence that we have witnessed. And I think it is a painful, difficult process, but I think it's unavoidable. And I would like to thank you wholeheartedly for stepping up and being such leaders in making this knowledge public and engaging us in listening and in coming to terms, with a legacy that lives on. I think that came out also very clearly, the multi-generational trauma, the pain, how it is passed on, and how it is not only history, it is part of contemporary society, of your lives, of Canadian society's lives. And I think we need to respond accordingly. So with a great degree of humility and thankfulness, I would like to express my great sense of gratitude from the center for being here today, sharing your story. And I very much hope that we can support, the book and an ongoing conversation, because clearly this is the start of a conversation, and we still need to go a long way to really respond accordingly to the suffering that we've seen inflicted upon Indigenous people here in Canada. So with this, back over to you, Kelly.
Oliver, thank you so much. Oliver, I want to really hold you up as somebody, a director of a research center on a university campus, and sitting in a very high, powerful position. And what you choose to do with your privilege and your power is to create space for others. And this, we couldn't ask for more. We're so grateful for you to be enabling this, and not just the event today, but as you say, we'll be really happy to put together a book launch when the book comes into publication, and we'll do this all again. So it'll be wonderful. So I'm going to close by asking Ray if he has a few brief words to share in closing, and then turn over to Florence to actually close for us. But before I do that, I want to say a great thank you to all of our speakers, to all of our participants, and to those amazing magicians behind the scene whose cameras are off, but there is Laura and Jody and Stephanie and Scott behind the scenes, our tech magicians making all of this happen. And thank you so much for creating this safe and very wonderful space for us to gather when we couldn't gather in person. It's really, really beautiful to be here. So thank you all, and over to you, Ray, for some closing words, what you would like to leave us with for now, because we will meet again, and then we'll go over to Florence.
All right, I thank you and all your staff for putting on this event. It's very important, and I really think this is a big move towards reconciliation is having events like this. I think it's important that people begin to understand what has occurred, but then also it's important to support what has occurred by listening and connecting with our people and not judging us from the way things have gone in Canada. People have tended to judge us from poor viewpoints, and we need to change that. We need to become more understanding. But I really feel it's important for everyone to change. So I just wanted to share that I do a lot of the talks locally here at all the schools in Mill Bay, Cowichan Valley, Duncan, Chemainus, Crofton. I've gone time and time again to talk to children, and that gives me hope, because a lot of them have been very supportive in wanting to learn about residential schools. I have gotten a lot of cards, a lot of notes and stuff. So I think the children are where the future is in the non-Indigenous community, because they're starting to change and they're starting to understand what it is that residential school situation was here in Canada for 1878 to 1996. The 134 residential schools have impacted a lot of our people. So thank you very much, Kelly, and to Oliver and all the staff. I really appreciate your work. Aichka.
I'm going to end with a little song. It's called Pahaichka song. I thank all of our listeners. Thank you for having this talk today and help us to walk every step. Thank you for being beside us, walking beside us. I honor your love to the human beings, and just the thought that I dedicate my haichka to my daughter, who experienced at 3 years old the violence at the kindergarten. And every day my husband brought her, we couldn't understand why she was ready to rip his shirt off. She hung on so tight, and she must have been going through the violence. And we'd say to each other, because you see, we made it normal. We thought, you get to school. And she just about ripped her dad's shirt off. So I dedicate my haichka song for her. She never did survive. After high school, she dropped out and we couldn't figure out why. But now we know why, because you see, you live in the normalized pain. And you think, oh, well, I guess that's the way things are. And so she was 3, and she experienced that before residential school closed at 1976. In that time frame, she was born 1972. So I'm going to sing my song. Haichka means thank you. Haichka, 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 CM. Haichka, 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 CM. Haichka, 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 CM. Haichka, 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 CM. Teacher, CM. Teacher, CM. Teacher, CM is the creator. And remember, the earth is going to speak on behalf of those that you're seeing now. It just looks like scientific, it's earth, but it's going to speak and reveal. So nothing can be hidden. Don't ever think the earth can't do that. It can. And it's going to talk to us. It's just like this heat wave that you're receiving. What's it telling you? Yeah, maybe it's greenhouse gases. What we doing about it? We need to love the earth in every practice we do. So I lift my hands up in honor of all the listeners. Thank you for helping us. We have all of you to listen to us. I thank you all.